Hey, what's going on, everybody? Tom Kelly here from Clean Cut Audio. This week and for the next few weeks, I'm going to be doing a series where I just produce a podcast in real time with some commentary, overhead videos on my keyboard. I'm just going to go through the entire process of order of events, getting the session ready, editing, mixing, mastering, assembling, exporting, all of that stuff. So it's going to be quite a few videos coming up because I don't want to make another 85-minute video that people only watch the first 8 minutes and 11 seconds of. Again, that hurt my soul. So I'm going to make quite a few shorter videos and really go through the process in the order that I do them. But this week, I'm going to be talking about the order of events. All right, let's do it. The podcast that I'm going to be working on today is my own. It is called Reminiscent. It's a podcast on emo and pop punk music from the early 2000s. I do it with my best friend, co-host Pat. He is in North Carolina. I'm in Colorado, so we record a double ender on Skype in one ear on our phones. We record into our own DAWs. He Dropboxes me the files and I sync them up and edit them together. It's a really good way to get the best audio, total isolation, to really be able to have unlimited editing abilities. All right, so we're going to take a look at Pro Tools here and I'm going to walk you through how the sessions are recorded and then produced. So when I record the podcast, I am recording just my signal into Pro Tools. I'm talking to my co-host over Skype on my phone. So I have one earbud in my left ear, and then I have my cans over everything so that I can monitor my own audio. But this is the recording. It's just one track. I have the master track, kind of out of habit. I left some markers in here because we pull quotes and we make audiograms and quote graphics and all kinds of stuff. So I make a few marks through the location, but the first thing that I need to do is get my co-host audio into the session. So in Pro Tools, Command-Shift-I will import the audio, and it's usually in our Dropbox here. So I'm going to go... we already have it taken out because this was done a while ago, but I like to use Dropbox because it integrates with Pro Tools. I don't need to, for example, Google Drive. I have to download the file, which takes up hard drive space. And we're talking 70-minute WAV files. It's 1.5 gigs or something like that. And then you have to re-import it into Pro Tools, which sometimes makes a copy of the file. So then it's another 1.5 gigs on the external hard drive. And it's just stupid. So with Dropbox, I work out of that because you can import the audio directly into the session and the file stays in Dropbox, so it's not destroying my hard drive. And I pay for gig speed internet, so I have the bandwidth to work directly out of Dropbox. It's not an issue. So now we need to get my co-host audio in the session. And what I do first is I actually... Option-Shift-I to import my session data. So this is like a template, but rather than having a template that I made 9 months ago, I work off of what I did last week because, especially for mixing, it's an iterative process, so I want to get a little better every week. So this way I can expand on what I did last week, which is the Valentine's Day draft. This is the episode folder with all the graphics and PNGs and the audiogram, After Effects templates and stuff like that. So I'm going to double click on my session, and these are all the tracks in the session. So I don't want to pull the audio from last week's track. I just want the session data. So do not import. Okay. It's going to drop in our tracks, Tom and Pat, with all the inputs and effects on it. I'm going to do it one more time. And I'm going to grab all the stuff that I want the audio for, import, okay. And now we have the session. I have 2 master faders in here, so I'm going to delete my old one. And I'm going to work off of this master fader. So the tracks that are important are mine up here. I'm going to drag this down, and boom, now my audio's mixed. It's done because I just am working off of last week's track. I already have his audio in the clip list, so it is a stereo file. So the reason that I import the session data is because now I get 2 tracks. I can drag it into these tracks, delete the one, move it over. Now I have a mono file from a stereo track. Now the other way we could do this is if we were to make a stereo track, and we dumped the file into a stereo track, what do? Right click, split to mono, delete the top 2, center 1, now we have a mono track. So I saved myself a few clicks by importing the session data first, since I'm going to anyway. And now we just have the Tom and the Pat track, and actually I can delete this one. And basically I'm ready to start editing, but there's one thing that I have to do first. If you Option and Command click on this volume track here in Pro Tools, you can see how much latency is added by your plugins. So there's a few on here that cause quite a bit, and I'm going to Command Control click de-reverb. We can see it gets rid of a ton of latency. The L2 adds a little bit, but the multiband compression adds a ton, and actually I'm not using the multiband compression anymore. So what on Pat's is adding latency? The EQ. Get rid of demouth click, and get rid of L2. So now I can properly edit with no latency. So what happens with latency is if you hit the space bar, it takes a couple milliseconds until it starts actually playing, which is super frustrating. When you hit stop, it takes a few minutes before it stops. I can't stand it. So just get rid of it. And now we're working with a track that's EQ'd. It has some compression on it. Actually, mine doesn't. So, but either way, we're working with tracks that are loud enough. They're EQ'd, so it sounds a little bit better. And I'm going to go ahead and hide all of these tracks because I'm not doing assembling yet. Going to hide the tracks, make these as big as possible. And I still have my location markers. I'm going to hide my plugins so that we get more screen room. Hide that, and I'm just going to start editing now that I have a kind of mixed and compressed signal, and they're going to be even. So it's kind of like mixing or processing light, and I'm going to get to that process at the end. Typically, if this were an interview-based show, what I would do is my strip silence to clear up all of these moments of silence that we want to just turn into absolute silence. But this is a talk show style podcast, and you can see there's a lot more back and forth, and maybe some of these interjections actually matter. Whereas in an interview show, I typically just rip them all out because someone just saying, yeah, oh, sure, yeah, right, yeah, it's super distracting, so I take them out, but this is a different style of show. So rather than doing all this strip silence, I'm going to listen to the show, and as I'm going, manually cut all of this stuff. And that is super atypical. I don't usually do this for my client shows, but this is my own show, and it needs to be dealt with a little bit differently. So I'm going to listen back in real time to make sure that all of these moments are good. We're going to get to that a little more in the editing portion. So let's just say the entire show is edited, right? All of these are taken out. Take out a couple of the ums, but not all of them. I have taken notes for my show notes, and it's all ready to go. What I'm going to do is get some of my workspace back, get the plugins back in, and I'm going to turn them all on, get my other tracks here, and I'm going to start assembling the show. And I want to see all the tracks in one screen. I don't like it when it has to scroll up and down because this is super frustrating to me. So get everything in one screen with no scrolling. I'm getting all of the music in the right place. We have an outro here. Going to make that so when we say bye, it's fading up. So that's about the right place. I have to record the outro to put in, and that is the assembling portion. It's a super easy show. It's just intro, music over the episode, and then an outro. I record it, and you'll see more in the assembly portion how I fit that all into there. And once it's assembled, select the whole thing, and I'm ready to bounce down. I'm going to pick my MP3s, make sure that dither's on, bounce it down to an MP3, and that's about it. So my order of operations is super simple. It is import my previous session templates, which is not a template. It's just my last session that I worked on. And then I'm going to drop all the files in. I'm going to hide all the music because I want to start editing as soon as possible. I edit the whole show with some of the plugins running after I remove the ones that cause latency, but I still get the compression so that I'm not listening to a show that has jarring moments of loudness. And then once I get through the episode, I'm going to be listening to portions, checking my WLM meter to see if they hit an average of -16, see what the range is. I'm really going to highlight a portion that's about a minute long, let it play through. And I'm going to find a portion of my co-host that you can see he's a little more dynamic than I am. So I'm going to find a portion like maybe this, minute and a half, play it through, check it, check my compression, make sure it's not over compressing anything. We'll get to more of that in the mixing. And once I find a mix that I'm happy with, I check it on my studio monitors as well. I assemble the show by putting the music in the right places, intro, outro, make sure the outro fits into my volume automation here, which I record it over the outro. So I usually try to make it fit in the recording process because, again, do as much as you can at the source. And then make sure all the mastering plugins are on, mouth click is in the right place, it is limiting this, and once you do a visual. So we want to also make sure that with these edits here, we can see that things are still in time to where, you know, my waveforms are coming in as his are going out. So just do a visual check to make sure nothing got knocked out of time when we're moving music around. So a visual check of that, maybe spot check a few portions, and bounce the whole session down to a 2-track stereo. I'm going to talk about why later. But that's the order of operations. Pretty easy. I know some people do it very differently, like I said, in Audacity, to where your only option is to kind of process destructively, not in real time. You're going to want to do that first, but I don't because I can monitor in real time. So next week, I'm going to start editing the show, and that's going to be the portion I think people really wanted to see. But I wanted to introduce how we even get to that point, because I get to the editing very quickly because I have my workflow set up to build the session and really just be ready to go. All right, that is it for this week. The session is set up, and I am now ready to edit. I think that having a process, having a template, or doing your import session data is really important, because you don't want to keep rebuilding the wheel every week. We want to do this part fast, and hopefully, as you know, you saw in my video, that especially with mixing and stuff, it's an iterative process, so you want to get a little bit better every week. So rather than pulling from a template you made 9 months ago, you've gotten a lot better at your craft in the past 9 months. So why don't you just pull the template from last week and keep building and expanding on it so that you're always getting better? That is the point of this channel. You and myself, we all want to be getting better every single day. And I hope this video helped. Stay tuned next week, where I'm going to be editing the podcast. It's not going to be an hour-and-a-half video of me editing. I'm going to jump around to some of the big workflow tips, maybe some time lapses, and really just showing beyond the typical, okay, I cut in and then I crossfaded. Like, if there's going to be some really useful stuff, I want to skip to that so that this video isn't crazy long. But either way, watching someone else work is super helpful. I just joined this program for music producers where you get the raw tracks from a band that you probably know if you're interested in this program. It's a pretty specific genre. You get the tracks, and then once a month, you get to watch the producer mix this song from start to finish. They're like 8-hour videos, and I watch them all. It's so helpful. My entire universe expands and changes within 5 minutes of watching these videos, because I've been doing Pro Tools for 10 years, but some of these people will pull out this thing that I never even thought of, never would have crossed my mind, and now my entire workflow is forever changed. And hopefully something in these videos is going to do something similar for you. That's really what I'm setting out to do here, and I want to do a lot more of this in the future. So speaking of the future, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you ring the bell so that you never miss an upcoming episode. I've got like 3 or 4 more videos on this series, and we're editing next week, like I said, so it's going to be a pretty exciting one. So make sure you're subscribed. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, cleancutaudio.com/podcast. Tons of supplemental but very different and unique information in there as well. I'm having a ton of fun with that. And if you want to take it even a step further, patreon.com/cleancutaudio. I'm trying to build this really great community of podcasters who really want to get better at their audio production. There's quite a few different tiers where you can just be a casual supporter if you want, or you can join the coaching and consulting tiers, which are a huge discounted rate from my normal rate. Get mix critiques and editing critiques, one-on-one video sessions, so that you can really get better at your podcast production, whether it's for your own show or for a client. It would be super helpful either way. So I hope to see you there. But if nothing else, just thank you so much for being here for this video. It really means a lot, and I'll see you all next week. All right, bye everyone.